Greenville in the 1920s. This is a interesting decade because it, in many ways, parallels where we are 100 years later, right now in the 2020s. We think we're in growth right now, and we are. That's how they felt back then in the 1920s. We were exploding as a city. So I'll touch on some of that that's going on, some different aspects of society and life. Before I get too far into that, when we say 1920s, what comes to your mind from that era? What are some themes and imagery, ideas? What was going on that comes out to you right away? Oh, 1920s, it's
Speakeasies.
speakeasies, okay, yeah. Because of prohibition, yes. The what?
Textiles, cotton.
Textiles, cotton, yeah, booming.
Rise of the automobile.
Rise of the automobile, yeah.
Baseball.
Baseball, Babe Ruth, yep.
Lost fortunes.
Lost fortune.
Air flight.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, air flight.
Okay. So, the bookends for the 20s, you know, the roaring 20s is because of kind of what happened before. The World War I ended, everybody was tense, the world was in chaos. The war was over, people could let their hair down, get back to normal life, and they let their hair down. So there were a lot of things that contributed to what we think about this era in the wake of World War I being over. So, as we mentioned, prohibition. That's just following the end of World War I, so no drinking. So that, you know, led to a lot of things like speakeasies, doing things underground, but it also kind of a sub-result of that, sodas. The alternative drink exploded. So that's kind of going on. And that's kind of a looming thing over that whole decade is prohibition. I mean, it was very polar subject. The nobody mentioned the flappers. Oh, you did. So the flapper culture, women who became more independent, a little bit different kind of view of life, philosophy, doing things that their mothers wouldn't do, dancing, shorter skirts, you know. That was very much a part of this culture in America. I guess to some degree worldwide too. But this is a part of Greenville, though, that I find less of evidence of. I'm sure it was here. We had the society to do it. We had the money rolling around to, you know, support some of that, but we're a pretty conservative historically town here. So, you know, I don't think that dominating aspect of the 20s of America was necessarily felt as much here. Certainly the fashions did, you know, flapper fashions were, you know, much in play here. And leisure time activities in the 20s. People wanted to have their activities, do their frivolous things, you know, they worked, but there was a lot of money flowing, and so they poured money into things that they could do in their leisure time, and jazz, which nobody mentioned, I think, either yet, that was really something that really became a prominent part, the music scene, the gathering together in these smoky rooms probably, and the music playing and the dancing and all of that. So I'm just going to touch on a few of these aspects that, you know, are here in Greenville. The soda culture here. We certainly had all of the Cokes and the Pepsis here that had been here before the 20s. But one of the soft drink companies that did start in the 1920s was Parfait, which is not a household name. You probably have never heard of that soda before, but that started in St. Louis in the 1910s. But by then it had come here to South Carolina. And anybody know where that was produced? What building? By any chance? A familiar one. That's the building, right on Main Street. So they bottled Parfait soda in that building. And that building was relatively new. 1913 is when that was built. It was meant to be a cotton warehouse for the Camperdown Mill across the river. It didn't end up being used for cotton storage, though. They had various businesses in there. It was either Pepsi or Coke did some bottling in there as well, prior to Parfait. But it was later a USO headquarters during the war. But yeah, that's an iconic building downtown. And all these other, so besides Parfait, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Lime Cola was made here, Orange Crush, Verner Springs, Chero Cola. And just past the 1920s, we were being called the soda capital of America. Who knew? But there was a lot of soda flowing here. Something else that grew up, and I just found out that Russell, right in his neighborhood, probably on this property, Traxler, David Traxler, had all this land out off of Bird Boulevard, and got the Greenville Country Club to move from Sans Souci, where they were, out on Benjamin Perry's old property, and moved to where they are now. So they've been there just over 100 years now. But here's an older picture of it, and it's an iconic structure for Greenville. But that's definitely a leisure thing, and a lot of the mill owners and executives, they were behind that. They wanted a bigger place, a better place to gather with their friends and play golf and have business meetings and all of that. So that was going up in the 20s. Women enjoyed it too. We've had a number of century celebrations here lately. One of them is the Greenville Theater. Anybody go to the gala over there? Some of the things that they had going on this year for that. That's exciting. That started within almost stone's throw distance from where we are right now, at Heritage Green, right over here. That was where the women's college was. And just backing up on that a little bit, the first school of Greenville was right there at Heritage Green in 1820. It was called the Male and Female Academy. That's why Academy Street is called Academy Street, because it led to the Male and Female Academy. But when Furman came to Greenville, they took over the school, added on to it, and made it the Greenville Baptist Women's College. So that's why College Street is called College Street, because college and academy intersected where that first school was. But that was the site in the Fine Arts Building for the origins of the Greenville Theater. And this is an early image of one of those plays. Of course, they're right over there now. I didn't think about that. They started there, and then they went out to Lowndes Hill.
Lowndes Hill Road.
Yeah. And then came back here. Never realized that. Okay. So these Greenville Historical Society photos, the Cox collection ones, are so, the resolution on them is so good. So like when you blow them up, you can see all these details of stores and what buildings look like and all that. This is somewhat of an aerial view of Main Street there. Looks a little different today. Particularly 5 Points. Did anybody go to that Boston lunch when it was on that location? The original location?
I remember the one up by where the bank used to be up at the mall.
That's it.
When I first seen it. Is that it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is Coffee Street, and that's Coffee Street. So that, what we now call the One Plaza,
Yeah.
used to spoke out into 5 streets, called 5 Points. So this Lawrence Road here, that's all sidewalk now. And Methodical Coffee, y'all know where Methodical Coffee is, right? That's right there. And Buncombe used to come in right here. Used to come in right into that intersection. And, sorry, it's easy for me to get tangents. When the farmers would bring their herds of animals, the drovers would come in from the mountains, they would come down Buncombe Road here, go right down there, come over to Main Street, and then bring the herds down Main Street over into the West End. And then once they got to the West End, they could either go to Augusta or to Pendleton to sell their herds. So those roads were directional to those cities to sell their animals. Okay, what else was on here? Oh, Keith's Department Store. So that was built in the 1920s as Keith's Department Store. 5 stories, which was big for North Maine at the time. Then it became Ivy Keith's after that. And then just Ivy's, which we probably recognize that. But it started out there. And Cress, this was the original Cress location, which was a smaller store. And then they moved over to where CVS is now and made a much bigger store there. But that was their original location there. Okay. Now, product that's near and dear to many people's hearts in this room, I know. Dukes. So, Mrs. Duke, flapper girl, Eugenia Duke, there she is. Bob haircut, pearls, she's got it going on there. She was in her 30s when she started this business in 1970. She came from Georgia. And I just recently discovered her husband was from Anderson, South Carolina. Harry Duke came from Anderson, South Carolina. But they met in Columbus, Georgia. And so they eventually moved here, 1914, lived over in the Pettigrew neighborhood on Manley Street, and started her business in her house. That house is still there on Manley Street. For a while I thought it wasn't there. I thought it was the property next to it, but her house is still there. But, I mean, if you're a woman in the 1920s, you're probably going to be a housewife or a textile worker or a teacher. You know, that's the lot in life for a lot of women at the time. But she bucked the system, and she was in more of that flapper mentality of independence, of going for it, and started up this sandwich making business in her house, making pimento cheese and chicken salad sandwiches with that mayonnaise that everybody still loves. And by the way, the mayonnaise, she started this in 1917, so right before the 20s. But there was sugar rationing in World War I. There's always rationing of everything during the war, especially World War I and World War II. So there was sugar rationing, so she couldn't get, if her recipe would have had sugar, she couldn't get it anyway. But fortunately, her recipe didn't have it in it, and never has. But that's kind of the context for when she was starting that up. But after her sandwiches really started taking off, she decided to open up a restaurant in the 1920s. right at the beginning of this decade. So it was right there on West North Street. So that was the original location. And it was small. I think I've got oh, this is a great picture. That's her delivery truck. Delivered to drugstores on Main Street. And she sold her sandwiches for 10 cents each. And all those soldiers at Camp Sevier bought them. And she made 2 cents profit on each sandwich. So they say when she got to her 10,000th sandwich, she bought her first delivery truck and would deliver them on Main Street with that. But the war camp is what really propelled her business to great heights. But these are some advertisements from her first restaurant, Duke Tea Room on West North Street. So there you see the address, next to Armstrong's Pharmacy. Opens July 1st, 1920. And these are the things that she was serving. Cantaloupe, broiled chicken, cream sweetbreads, fried chicken, cream gravy. No mayonnaise. I mean, there was probably in one of those products, but she was a chef. She was a cook. And I've read some of the later descriptions of her that she was once called the best cook in the South. Interesting. And I always find it fascinating too, and I misspelled it up there, look at that. Duke Tea Room, not Duke's Tea Room. So yeah, but notice that the Otteray Hotel here. So she was in that first location for a year-ish, maybe less. I think it was less actually. So the Otteray Hotel on Main Street, where the Hyatt is now, I mean, that was already there. That was 1909. But in the Roaring 20s, this was the place to be. The Poinsett Hotel wasn't built yet. So if you were a wealthy businessman and you wanted to stay somewhere nice, you went to the Otteray. And so she moved her business over to that dining room, the first floor. I've never seen an interior picture of the Otteray. Any of you got one hiding in your closet somewhere? And I'm holding out hope, because last year, Catherine Fassou came to us at the Society after Hurricane Katrina, and her basement had gotten flooded. She had to deal with some things that she wanted preserved and didn't want to have them damaged. So she took out her stuff, and there was a picture of the interior of the Mansion House Hotel. The only one known. And her grandfather is in it, at the bar. So I'm hoping that someday a photo like that will surface inside of here. So down on the river, the White Pavilion, which at the time was a defunct paint shop for the carriage factory. It had been abandoned. Cars came around, nobody needed carriages anymore. So that closed around 1910, and then it was empty, and so Mrs. Duke bought it for her mayonnaise production. So 1923. So there's a picture of Duke's in that building. And notice how the building is longer in this photo than it is now. So when Mrs. Duke took it over, she extended it, doubled the size. But today it's back to its original carriage factory size. And the trains would come up right next to it there. That's the Reedy River right there. The Reedy Trickle with a bunch of vegetation in it.
And the Swamp Rabbit Trail where the railroad was.
Yeah. All right. So, this is an advertisement from 1923. And during the infancy of her restaurant and her mayonnaise business and all of this, she would go around personally to demos in different cities and in Greenville, and probably cook something with her mayonnaise and talk about her products. And so this is in Gaffney, one of the things she did there. And I just came across this a few weeks ago. So she gave out recipe books in these demos. So if any of you find one of those, oh man, tell me. But the other thing they gave out were can openers for her mayonnaise jars. That's one right there. This is from the 1920s.
That's what was
It was. So it says Duke's homemade mayonnaise on there. And I've had that for a little while. I came across this recently because I didn't know any context for that. But apparently she only did these demos during a few years during the early parts of her business. And in the early part of her business, it always said homemade mayonnaise because she started out in her home. Even after she got into that factory, she still used the term for a while, not too long. But that indicates that that is an early can opener, and she only did those demos for a few years. So that's from the 1920s. So I was thrilled to death. Okay, back to this picture, Sears. I mean, that was the Amazon of the day. And started out as mail order only. So I was reading about when they opened here in Greenville, and they said the big hurdle for their company when they made these brick and mortar stores was to convince people that they could get stuff over the counter and not just have to buy it in the catalog. And I was like, Amazon. They were the early Amazon. So their little store was up there by the Otteray Hotel. There it is, a little bit closer. There. And the Majestic Theater. Okay, so 1920s, roaring 20s, leisure, activities, fun, Main Street filled up with theaters. And the Majestic had been there prior to the 1920s, but that was part of the scene. But there were two that opened up in the 20s that were very significant, in future generations. The Carolina Theater. Does anybody remember going there? Okay, so that was torn down in the 60s, I want to say. Yeah, I think it was the 60s. But built in 1925. So right in the middle of the roaring 20s, right next to the Otteray. Here's another view of it. So there's the Otteray on the right now, and a beautiful Carolina Theater. I wish we had one marquee left from the old days here on Main Street. I mean, wouldn't that be awesome? Oh. So here's the inside, the entryway. What's that say? Honolulu. Now, okay, just a little plug here. I know of somebody who owns those 4 metal doors right there. And they're selling 2 of them right now. And I don't have the money to pony it up right now. So if anybody's got $500 and they want to donate it to the society for us to buy that, to preserve for the future, well, let me know. But, I mean, what an awesome thing. The original doors from the Carolina Theater. So there's the inside, so elegant.
Oh, did the Majestic stay open after they built that one? Or did they coexist together?
They were together, yeah. There were, and I'm going to get to some other ones that were on the street too. Yeah, there was a bunch of them. Yeah, this was on they were on the same side of the street, just different blocks. But the Rivoli was kind of across the street from the Majestic. So this is when they were building it in 1924. And Keith who was part of the building and next to it, that says Craig Rush Furniture on there at that. But Keith was behind funding getting that theater going, Colonel Keith. So here's the Greenville News notice of the Rivoli opening up tomorrow. And that's a dark picture of the inside of it. And here's, you know, kind of the flavor of that decade, 1927. The kind of films and things that they were showing in there. There's another one of it. And there's the context, you know, right across the street from the Honoré, essentially. Maybe more like Bertolo's, or maybe about where Roost Restaurant is, kind of across from there. All right, this is 1921, so beginning of the decade, again, leisure, entertainment, circuses happened almost monthly, if not more frequently than that. And that was a big deal, that was big entertainment. A lot of the circuses were down off of Perry Avenue, near the village of West Greenville. You know where like Unlocked Coffee is and Barnhouse Brewery and all that? Right over there, there's a big field over there still. But they would parade through, when they got off the train and stuff, they would parade through town over to the fairgrounds. And this is them on Main Street, October 1st, 1924. And I know that that's the date. And when I first found this photo, the date was not known. But I looked up Sinners in Heaven at the Gehring Theater, and it was only here for a week. And the day that the circus and Sinners in Heaven coincided was October 1st. So that's the day. This is now, the Gehring Theater burned, and this is Myers Arnold right here next door. So after the Gehring Theater burned, they took it over, that space. And that's Mass General now. But before it was Mass General, it was Myers Arnold. And these buildings are all still here. All those are, well, some of them, most of them. So there it is, kind of a higher view of that building I just showed you. Now this is, oh, I love coming across pictures like this because there's parts of town that there's relatively few photos of over time. And this part of between Main and Church Street, that neighborhood over there, there's not many photos of. And this shows the neighborhood when when there were homes on North Street and Coffee Street and, you know, all of that. So there's Washington. So this would be Spring Street. Fall Street. And yeah, just all those residential Victorian homes. Oh, they have those still here. But a lot of you remember Charlie's Steakhouse, which is now Ariana. That's, I think that building right there. Still here. Grant's department store. So department stores were becoming more and more of a thing, and Grant's at the time, that was apparently bigger than Sears. I mean, that's a lot bigger than Sears building on the same street. So, anybody know what's there now? That's Coffee Street.
Yeah, there's no.
So right where that arrow is pointing, there's a certain rooftop restaurant.
Sip.
Sip.
Yeah.
That's on top of Grant's. And I believe that's the same building. They redid the facade later. But underneath the newer kind of facade, I think there are some really old bricks. Here's the front of it. So essentially that view right there, you're kind of standing on the corner where Trio Restaurant is, looking across the street. Yeah. All right.
Coffee underground?
Yeah, so that's in this, the building that we're going to talk about now, Bank of Commerce. That's on the northeast corner of Coffee. And that was built in 1905 as this bank. And here's the front of it. Oh, another great old picture. So the bank was on the corner section where Ristorante Bergamo is now. But next to it was the Bijou Theater, another theater. And prior to the Bijou, I forget the name of it offhand, but only for about 3 or 4 years it was another theater. It opened in 1905. That's the first theater in Greenville, that location. So I think that's where Kawa Palace is going now. A little Yemenis coffee shop that's about to open soon. I think that's the same storefront. Okay. Look at this. Main Street, Washington, and look at that huge sign on top of that building. I mean, it was I think it was 30 foot high. A lit electric sign on Main Street. I mean, we think the Poinsett Hotel sign is kind of cool up there. This would have dwarfed that. And it says, "Our country first, then Greenville." So there was this patriotism going on that swept through the country, and we were among the early ones to do something like this. Actually, let me back up. This is right before World War I when it was put up. So 1916, sorry. This photo is 1920s. But it was there, the point is that it was there in the 1920s. It was a big part of the experience of Main Street in the 20s. It was already there since 1916 though, with the World War I stuff. But here it is, lit at night. And that flag, the bulbs went, they undulated. So, I mean, that must have been a spectacle, for people to go down and see that. I mean, and then you think, and I haven't even shown you all the theaters, but you have all these marquees with the lights. And then you have this sign, and then down further with the Greenville News Building, they had a huge sign. So it was an interesting signage on Main Street. It was taken down in 34. So that's, long gone.
It's not in one of y'all's garages, is it?
So 1922, segregation, of course, was part of our country, sadly. And but there were professional African Americans who were doing very good things, and they wanted a place in downtown to have their businesses. And the Working Benevolent Temple that was based in, I think, Columbia, financed this building to be built so that African Americans in Greenville could have space right near Main Street downtown. So barber, cafes, insurance, dentists, all of those professions, were in there. And that's a pretty recent picture. So the building is in amazing shape, but that's over 100 years old now.
What's the location of that building?
That's right in the corner of Broad and Springs. Okay, so we had a big tall sign on Washington Street, but there were no tall buildings in Greenville until this. This was the first skyscraper in Greenville. So the Woodside building, the Woodsides. They're the Woodsides. They had a ton of money. They had the largest mill in America, and John Woodside was about to build a huge golf resort in Myrtle Beach, the Ocean Forest Resort. This was the bank. This was Woodside National Bank. So they created a national bank through their company. And that's them building it up. I mean, that's ambitious. I mean, 17. So there's the Woodside Mill at the time. It's still that big. Over 300 apartments in there now. Here's a view of the Woodside Bank being built on Main Street in the distance. So if we're seeing that from above, where are we seeing that from here? Furman Tower. Yes. Isn't that cool? So that tower there. So looking out, let's see, it would have been on this other side here. That's the hole there. So rising up, showing off its economic power. I mean, we're the Textile Center of the South right now in the 1920s. Not the world yet, we're on our way, but just the South at the moment. And look at that, that's them building it. I mean, it looks like New York City, right? Here's the ground floor. Isn't that awesome? I mean, that's Greenville? What?
Is it snow underground?
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah.
That was July.
And the next day it was 90 degrees.
Yeah.
That's the old Goodlit House Hotel. That's one of the early hotels for Greenville, like the Mansion House. That was a dinosaur on Main Street. But so here's the only photo I know of the interior of Woodside Building. I mean, it was mahogany everywhere, marble everywhere. They spared no expense. And that was the tallest building, not only in South Carolina, but North Carolina too. And we're about to get the tallest building in South Carolina again. What, later this year? They're gonna break ground? No, next month they're gonna break ground. So, I mean, again, the comparison between 1920s and 2020s, we built the tallest building in the state then, we're about to build the tallest one again now. But the interesting thing, 100 years apart, and it's only 2 stories higher, the tallest building. Wait a minute, no, this was 17. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
We like your story better.
Okay, the Imperial Hotel. So that's just right down the street right here. We're on Washington Street. Just go down, go past First Pres, and right there is Greenville Summit. Okay? So that's the original building. And it was a hotel, the Imperial Hotel. So next time you go over there, look at that corner section. It's a lighter yellow color brick, because that's the oldest part. So that hotel, I mean, it was a fancy hotel. It's older than the Poinsett Hotel. Think about that. But between us and the Imperial Hotel, right behind this building, the Textile Exposition came. The Southern Textile Exposition came to Greenville in 1950. And it was one of America's largest events. And they held it in the warehouses that were right here behind this church, lining Washington Street. And 40,000 people came for this event in 1915. And today that sounds like a 40,000. You know, that's half of Clemson's football stadium, right? It's a big deal. There were only 10,000 people living in Greenville. And we had 40,000 people descend on us for a week. And we only had 2 hotels, the Otteray and the Imperial Hotel. So we needed more hotel. I mean, it was a mess. Those hotels filled up like that, and people had to stay in people's homes everywhere. So the Imperial, which is right around the corner from Textile Hall, said, oh, well, we'll accommodate, we'll build on. So in 1917, they built that middle section, and in 1922, the Roaring Twenties, they built the final section. So that was the largest hotel in South Carolina for about 40 years. Grand hotel. But it declined in the 70s. It's the Greenville Summit now. But it had its heyday, especially in the 20s. Oh boy. The best building we've ever had, in my opinion. That was there for 100 years. It was a 100-year-old building in the 1920s. And by then it had become the Chamber of Commerce. Okay, it started out as the courthouse when Robert Mills designed it in the 1820s. And then it became the records office, and then finally the chamber. And the chamber, you know, the chamber, anybody here on the chamber? You know, they're the economic engine for the city. They want to show us off and put us in our best light and make us look like we're the best city everywhere. So the chamber, in a 100-year-old building, they didn't feel like that was really showing off who we were. So they thought, well, let's tear that down. That's not good enough. Ooh. So they built this new Chamber of Commerce. So that's on the same spot as the old courthouse. And now it's 100 years old.
Did the chamber ever move into that building, or?
They did, but they
only had short act.
that's right. So in 1925 they moved in when it opened, but in what happened at the end of this decade. So they couldn't afford it anymore after the Depression.
Good job. The top building looks a lot like the one in Charleston.
Same architect.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He did 17 courthouses in South Carolina.
Interesting.
Ours was the last one he did. I think the one in Camden is still there that he did, right? There's an old courthouse there. There's a few others. So the Chamber of Commerce goes up in 24, opens in 25. There it is, finished. I mean, that made a statement for the chamber. So, now we have the textile exposition going on. We've got things moving. And so, 2 big powerhouses in the city are like, let's build more hotels. Sound familiar? So, 2 hotels are announced within a few months of each other. Well, actually, kind of at the same time. So, the first one, the City Hotel, is going to be financed by John Westervelt. He owned Brandon Mill and Judson. And he proposed, this was the rendering. So they made plans, they went kind of far with it. And that was going to go right down the street here, right where Abyss Restaurant is now. You know what I'm talking about? Orvis is right across from that. The Aloft Hotel, right there. So this was going to go there, on that corner. And then the other hotel proposed that same time was the Poinsett Hotel. And that was being backed by John Woodside and William Goldsmith. So the Mansion House, which had also been built in the 1820s, like the courthouse, that was old and sore, and they thought, let's tear that down and build a hotel there. So they built the Poinsett Hotel there. Same footprint. There it is going up. Still under construction there. And meanwhile,
John, why did they use the same footprint, just because, or was there a reason for that?
Well, I think that they wanted to protect and honor the original Port Square, which had been there since 1797. But, you know, the hotel was, I've read somewhere that they used the foundation from the old mansion house, but I don't know if that's true. Okay, so they're building this right there. Right across the street is the chamber being built. So we had two skyscrapers being built at Port Square at the same time. That must have been a traffic nightmare. I mean, you can imagine, well, there's a bunch of people there. It must have been some ceremony. But here's on the inside of the poinsettia. Here's when it opened in the lobby. They brought in all the finest things. There's a comparison in the same corner. Same ceiling, same chandeliers, same ironwork in the lobby. Now a little further over on Port Square, across from the poinsettia, on the opposite corner is, so we all know that building, the courthouse there that's now in Judson, but this was the Masonic building that was there before City Hall. So that Masonic building was an office building, and it had all of the textile guys in there, offices galore. I forget what the stat was. I think at least 10% of the entire textile industry of America was the money went through that building. And then River Mills. This is a much lesser known mill for Greenville, but this was built right at the start of the 1920s. Actually, it was converted in the 1920s. That had already been there actually since a few decades before. But it literally was right on top of the river. And it was a cotton waste recycling plant. So cotton products that the mills couldn't use, that were no good quality for that, would be sent here, and they would use it for like stuffing for pillows and mattresses and things like that. So consequently, it was very flammable. And so it burned down in 1941. I thought I had a picture that I could show. I do have a picture. But yeah, burned down in 1941. All right, so don't look at the top part there, that's the wrong dates. But this is just in the 1920s. Now we had a ton of mills here already. Poe, Brandon, Woodside, Judson, Dunedin, I mean, they were all here. And in the 1910s, there were a bunch more built. But this is just in the 1920s, more textiles that were added here, businesses. And River Mills is what I just mentioned to you. But all these other ones were going up during the roaring 20s. So we had a lot of entertainment. We had a lot of leisure things building up. We had a lot of buildings going up. A lot of mills being built. And then that happened. So, but that's an interesting bookends, right? For the 1920s, we have the end of World War I, we have Prohibition, and then at the end, stock market crashing. But boy, there was a whole lot going on in between there. And let's not hope this happens at the end of this decade. History does repeat itself sometimes. But we shall see. Thank you very much.